Hi, I'm Celia Boothman, founder of LTRcoaching, and I'd like to welcome you to the Inspired Triathletes podcast, where I'll be bringing you stories from female triathletes and taking on topics that are important to women in the sport. Okay, so hi Lisa, thank you very much for joining me today. So my guest today is Lisa Watt, and she is a nutrition coach and also a triathlete. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how she got into nutrition coaching, her mindset around nutrition, what has changed for her in her nutrition, and a little bit about how you can find out more about her. So Lisa, if you just want to give me a little bit of an introduction about yourself, how many years have you been training for triathlon and possibly endurance sports, because maybe you were doing a marathon before that, and what kind of drew you into being interested about nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Nice to talk to you. My name's Lisa. I currently do triathlon. I've probably been doing that for about 3 or 4 years now, and started working with yourself, Celia, kind of probably about 9. Well, beginning of the year, I guess now.
I think it's about a year, yeah.
Yeah. I got into nutrition coaching, I suppose, generally, really because of the experience I had, and kind of the hole I got myself in, I suppose, with not understanding nutrition and not fueling myself correctly. I had a period where I had a period where I had no periods for about kind of 7 years or so.
Right.
And I didn't really went through all the usual channels with the GPs and checks and things, and they were like, no, there's nothing wrong, and put you back on the pill, and that was kind of sort yourselves out, sort your periods back out. But I didn't kind of like agree with that approach, and I knew kind of like something was wrong, so sort of started doing a bit of my own research, I guess, Googling and kind of finding out about things, and came across kind of Red S and that kind of low energy availability, and realized that was something that I had really.
Yeah.
I realized that the things in my training, I could then kind of reflect on things that were going on in my training and myself, sort of like low mood, not really kind of improving in training, not really wanting to train. So I kind of decided that I needed to do something about it. So I wanted to educate myself more on the importance of nutrition, and also how I could kind of get myself out of it. Like, it's all very well knowing what you need to do, but then it's also kind of getting over those kind of ingrained habits and perceptions and attitudes towards nutrition and food that quite hard to. It was all very well someone saying you need to do X, Y, Z, but actually, how do you
implementing
do
it?
Yeah, day to day.
So what kind of like mindset, what kind of ingrained thoughts and ideas did you have then?
I suppose it was kind of around, I didn't need to eat that much food. I didn't need to fuel my training. I was worried about gaining weight if I ate more, and those kind of perceptions. I think, body image and a bit of that. If you're lighter, you're faster. Kind of attitude. So that was probably where my mindset was at.
Okay, so you thought if you were lighter and you ate less as you were training, then that would be better, and then it obviously wasn't.
There's a lot about there, isn't there? People say, oh, you're lighter, you're going to run quicker, or you're on the bike, you've got your
like power to weight ratio.
But that kind of doesn't take into the fact that then you haven't got the power, it's just that you haven't got the energy to fuel your sessions, and that might work in the short term. You might kind of be lighter and be quicker, but that's not really a long-term solution that will catch up with you.
Yeah. So did you say 7 years that you had your period for? So did that kind of creep up on you, like, or was it just, how long do you think you were under fueling for? for that to happen?
Probably for a lot of that time. I suppose it kind of crept up on me really. It came at a time where I moved location and I kind of got into a different sport. So I started running a bit more. I was doing a bit of rowing. I'm lucky to live down in Devon by the sea, so I do a lot of like gig rowing and that kind of stuff. And so my activity levels increased as well at the same time, as kind of like not really matching that with the fueling, I suppose. And you go to the doctors and they sort of say, oh well, it's not a problem, are you trying to have children? It's like, no.
Yeah, that's
And then
crazy, isn't it?
and
That
you
they
think, oh well, it's fine.
Yeah, I know. That's like, I find that amazing that you go in with such a, that's like a red flag, isn't it? It's red. But it is a red flag, isn't it? I haven't had my periods. It shouldn't be like, oh, it doesn't matter because you're not.
No.
It's a huge thing, and it causes all sorts of problems, doesn't it, if you don't have your periods? So they should be.
We're lucky in a way as women that we have that a kind of once a month kind of check in with ourselves, that like that is something that happens, and if you can kind of notice that, and if it doesn't occur, or the length of your cycle changes, then it's kind of like, okay, well maybe I need to look at what I'm doing.
Definitely. No, we are lucky because men do suffer from red S as well, but they don't have a period, so they don't know whether they're in that situation or not a lot of the time. Because do you think you'd have known something was up if you hadn't stopped having your periods? Was it that severe, like your moods and your lack of energy, or could you just have kind of dismissed that as something else, or was it quite?
I think it got quite bad towards the end, but I don't know whether I would have ever attributed to that, really. You kind of don't, because it kind of creeps up on you a little bit. You don't realize kind of how far down the line you've got, or how far your mood has changed, or your demeanor has changed, really.
Yeah, definitely. Did anyone else kind of pick it up, or was it just
it was actually my partner. We got together, we've been together about 5 years, and it was kind of in the first sort of year or so of being with him that he kind of like picked up on it, and he was the one actually that he really helped me sort of sort it out and like sit me down and start talking, like, you need to do something about this.
That's really good. Awesome. So so you told me that once you did a marathon without fueling at all for that. So I just wanted to ask you how that went. I'm kind of curious as to how the day went for you that day, and also like what was going through your mind to sort of think that was okay to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of training as well at that point. I was doing a lot of rowing as well. I was training for like a big championship event with rowing, and then decided I was going to run a marathon at the same time. And I just always had, I got into running kind of gradually, started doing small, little bits, just going out a couple of times a week, and then it kind of developed. And it never really occurred to me that I might need fuel to do that, do those sessions, really. And before you know it, you're running for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and not fueling for those. And I didn't people talk about gels and the things at the time, and I was like, oh, I don't really, that's all sugar, and I don't really want to take those on. They're all kind of like that. I don't need that. I can run for that long, and I felt like I didn't need it, so I never practiced it in training. It wasn't something that I was planning to do on race day. I got to what most people get to, sort of like 18 miles or something, and you just kind of like completely bonk, really, and you've got nothing left. And it's a real struggle to get through the last bit, really.
Yeah, so you finished, but what was it like?
I did finish, but the last few miles were definitely a run walk, and just kind of, and you can kind of, I remember coming down the last bit where you can see the finish line, and it just feels like it's never getting closer, because you're doing a kind of a run walk thing to try and to get at the end. And and I don't think I really was able to recover from that. I had post the race, I had like work was quite stressful at that time, and I just couldn't cope with work. I don't think it was just all too much. I think because the stress that I put my body under from all the training and then the event of the marathon without properly fueling, and then not being able to recover from that because I wasn't taking on the right fuel after. Yeah, it was.
So did you still have that mindset after, like, I can't refuel because I'll be maybe putting on weight, or like,
Yeah, I
not
think so.
necessary for me to eat at this time? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think I had a pizza afterwards, but like, not kind of, didn't kind of think about, oh, I need to replace what I've kind of lost or used, and think about what my body really wanted after doing that huge effort, what it needed to kind of rebuild itself, recover and repair.
Yeah. So it sounds like it affected like your life afterwards. Was that kind of a turning point then, do you think, at that point?
Yeah,
For
I think
you?
it was. I think I was doing, as I said, a lot of training, doing the event, and just didn't recover, and then had a work kind of stress and a bit of a meltdown at work.
Yeah.
I was like, there's something not quite right here. I need to do something about that.
Okay. And then that's when you went to your GP and they were like nothing, or was that earlier?
I'd been seeing them for a while, but
Okay.
kind of like I went back to that. I ended up seeing kind of a private nutritionist, kind of like dietitian, to help me get through a few things, really, because I realized I wasn't really getting anywhere with my GP, and had some blood tests done which threw up a load of things that were not quite right. So just try and work at getting myself back and getting my cycle back again.
Yeah. So how did that look then, trying to get your cycle back? What did you have to do?
It was started very small, so kind of I think that's the key to it. You don't, because it can feel kind of overwhelming, and if someone's going to tell you you need to like double the amount of calories, something that you're eating, you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. So just it started really small, like trying to the first step was not doing any fasted training. So I used to go like running in the morning, just out of bed and go, but just working on taking something small, even if it's like half a banana and a spoonful of yogurt or something, just making sure that you're not doing any fasted training. So that was kind of the first step, and I think that was massive. I think for me, not doing the fasted training was huge, and trying to kind of control that cortisol reaction in the morning, and like not put that body into that stressed mode first thing in the morning, or exacerbating that.
Yeah, so many people do that fasted trade, they sort of just get up and I understand, because quite often people have to get up very early to do the training. Oh, I don't want to eat before my training because I've got to get up early or whatever. But like you say, it can be something really small just to bring your cortisol levels down. It doesn't have to be like a huge thing, but it's almost like a mindset that people get into, like, oh, I don't need it, I can't, I don't have to do that. And even if that's all you're doing, like doing fasted training in the morning, it can really, it sort of knocks it, because it's like a habit that you form. It does affect, whenever anyone says they do that, it's like a bit of a kind of alert for me, because I think if you're doing that like constantly, there's something else going on there. It's almost like there's something in your head that's thinking you don't need that fuel, that session. And sometimes like you don't, but it's just, I don't know, I think it's a really good habit to get into, because it sets you up and it puts you in the right frame of mind. Like, I am exercising, I need to fuel for this exercise, rather than I am exercising to try and burn off calories and lose weight. And it's like, it's sort of flipping it around and having that attitude.
Definitely. I think that particularly for, say, triathletes and things who are often training twice a day, they're doing a lot of training. They're not just doing exercise or moving. They're doing training. We're athletes, and that definitely, that fuel for what you're trying to get your body to do. It's not about doing the work so you can eat the food after as
Yeah.
a reward. It's that it's food. I read something the other day which was like food is information rather than food as fuel. So
Okay.
you're giving your body food that it uses as information. It knows kind of then what to do with it, what you're trying to make it do. So that's kind of that really stuck with me. And I think that also that sometimes I don't always feel like eating before a session or immediately after, but I think about kind of what that's doing, how my body's going to use that fuel to repair and recover and improve as well. We know that we don't get fitter doing the sessions. It's what how the body adapts to those sessions. And if you're not giving it what it needs to adapt and repair, there's almost no point in doing the sessions, because you're not going to see any improvements if you're not giving your body what it wants.
Yeah, I really like that idea of giving it food as information. It's kind of like thinking of it like programming, or
Yeah.
because, or I don't know, it's another way. It's a really good way of looking at it, isn't it?
I,
And it's
I,
like,
yeah,
go on.
struggling with the food is fuel, which I get it, like kind of feeding, you know,
Mm,
think of your body as an engine, which is a kind of good analogy. But I think all the systems that go that in the body are so complex, and the way it uses or, you know, the hormones and the signaling that goes on, that you're giving that food as information for then it knows what it's supposed to do, and it can
yeah.
react accordingly.
And yeah, that makes you think about the quality of the food as well,
Yeah,
rather than just giving myself fuel. That could be anything, and it could just be
yeah,
whatever you want. Whereas information is like, you're thinking about, what is this going to give me as a benefit, rather than
yeah.
just like, yeah, I like that analogy. That's good. I might have to use that. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so so you decided to do things differently. You started getting help. You started taking things slowly and not doing your fasted training. And then what kind of happened once you started not doing the fasted training? Did you have to do any work on your mindset, or did it kind of naturally evolve as you started making changes in your habits?
I think it naturally started changing once I started understanding a little bit more about what my body wanted and needed. And also kind of with every little step that you took, you realised I haven't suddenly put on loads of kilos
Yeah.
because I started eating a banana before my training session. So it kind of gives you that confidence that you can try a bit more and add a few things, and then you realise that your mood's getting better, you're not so tired, you're sleeping better, you've got a bit more motivation to train, maybe. I mean, everyone's slightly different, but you kind of, and then you're just slowly kind of adding and seeing that it's almost that letting go of those fears or kind of controls that you thought you know you needed to put in place, and that it's fine, you can do that, and the body actually does respond. And then eventually my periods did come back, so that's kind of, you know,
Yeah.
a good, you know, you realize that you're giving the body what it needs, and it's doing what it wants to do and what
It's
it's supposed to
acting in
do.
the right way that it should do. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did that take then to get your periods back?
Probably to get a regular cycle was about a year
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, so
Okay.
it took a while, but you know you see improvements in the meantime.
Yeah. So was your mood like one of the first things that you noticed?
I think so. That I think motivation to train actually was one of the big ones. Like
Right.
you wanted to do the sessions and you felt ready, and not as tired all the time. That was probably one of the biggest ones I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So then you decided to do a nutrition course. Was that kind of after you'd started getting your periods back, or was it part of the learning process for you?
It was probably I started getting more interested in kind of my body and periods just in general. I suppose it wasn't really something that, because I hadn't had them for so long, I just started like, these are like amazing, and you know, and I wanted to find out a bit more about how it all worked. And I started then tracking my cycle to notice symptoms and understanding how I change across the cycle, and also if I'm involving my partner and he can notice kind of things about me. And it kind of evolved that I wanted to kind of learn more about it and also help other people and understand, and kind of it doesn't have to it doesn't just apply to people who are training hard, or it's every woman really, to help them, once you kind of understand your cycle and what it needs, it's quite empowering really, I think. And that helps you know what you need to do. You want to nourish your body really, I think, once you understand it, what it's trying to do. And so kind of that led me down the role of kind of looking at kind of nutrition coaching, so that I could kind of tailor it to a kind of female aspect.
And do you notice any difference then with what you eat? Do you change your diet at all according to your cycle, or do you just, because when you said food as information, that sort of made me think about us being more intuitive with our eating. And that happened for me, I think, when I started training a lot more. I started looking into nutrition, like what I needed to fuel, and then when I started eating better, I started to know what I needed and kind of pick foods that I felt were the right things for me to eat. It kind of happened just as a sort of secondary thing. So does that happen naturally? Do you kind of eat intuitively throughout your cycle? Does anything change? Do you have like or is there something that you follow? Or
I don't. I listen to my body really, and I think that's one of the key things about nutrition really. And your body's really clever. It'll tell you what it wants, and it'll tell you when it's hungry. It'll tell you when you've had enough. So it's kind of dialing into those cues and not being afraid to. If your body's hungry, then it wants to eat something. So kind of give it that. I do notice that, like, later on in my cycle, I do want to eat more, and there's a tendency that I want those like that chocolate or those kind of like high calorie foods. But I understand that I actually do need you do need a couple more hundred calories, most women in their kind of the latter part of their cycle. So it's I don't feel guilty about having that. I know that that's what my body needs. So it's just kind of being aware of that, and listening to your body really. But yeah, definitely. And I would try to have maybe kind of sort of whole food options in the latter half of my cycle around you more easily. So like have some nuts around, and rather than kind of knowing that I've got all the chocolate in the cupboard because I know I'm going to want to eat something. So it's kind of a few strategies around that. But again,
I think that really helps with the sort of like, because it's a habit sometimes, isn't it? Like eating and snacking, and if you feel like snacking, then if you've got those things that are a little bit better choices. I don't like to use the words healthier, and I don't like to classify foods in good and bad sort of camps, because then there's a whole kind of like can of worms that you open then, and start attaching meaning to certain foods and making yourself feel guilty and bad and all that kind of thing, or virtuous and pure or whatever.
Clean eating.
We don't want to, that word that doesn't, I don't like it's like food, it helps you to recover, as you say, and picking the things that your body needs and it wants,
and the things that you enjoy. Like food is it's such an emotion. There's so many things caught up with food. Like it's social, it's emotional, it's your preferences are kind of dictated by your background and your past experiences and stuff, and it should be something that you enjoy as well. And you shouldn't have all these rules and restrictions around foods. It is it should be enjoyable, but listening to your body and focusing on kind of like whole foods, and that will you go a long way to give once.
I think once you start like like it's where you put your focus, and once you start putting your focus there, your tastes kind of change as well a little bit, I think. I don't know whether that's getting older or like because of the way I've been eating has been different for a while. You know, I still enjoy like all food. There's nothing that I don't really eat, but I tend to want different stuff than I might have wanted in my 20s or wanted to eat in my 20s, or like binged on. And, you know, I used to do that kind of thing at some point in my life, just, and then feel really awful afterwards. I'd like eat loads of just not great food. And then feel bad afterwards. And that was probably in that sort of second half of my cycle. But at the time I didn't realize. I kind of knew that that was what it was, but it was almost like I just felt awful. So I wanted to make myself feel better. And I did that with food a bit, you know.
And then so much guilt, and then you kind of think, oh, well, and you try to kind of compensate by like exercising or eating less the next day, which kind of makes it worse. I think it's also recognizing that when you're training, you do need to eat a lot of food, and quite often when you feel like you're out of control or you want to eat a lot, it's because you haven't fueled yourself well enough, like either in the past week or that day. You kind of if you're eating kind of regularly and enough through the day, I think that gives you much more, you feel much more in control. You don't have those kind of urges to eat things or kind of feel like you have to say no to things, because you know you just naturally kind of, your body tells you
know what you need. You know what you need, and it's tuning, it's having the awareness though to tune into it, isn't it? And kind of be aware of what your body needs, because I think sometimes we do override it, don't we? We can do it with our minds, we can override that sort of. And so it sounds like you've got really good at listening to your body because of the experience that you had. Probably it was like you ignored it for so long, and then this thing happened and it's like, okay, I really need to pay attention to this now. And then you managed to get some awareness around that and started building from that.
And I think, and it's not easy, and it does take a long time to kind of undo those habits, but I think definitely having an understanding of what your body actually needs, the amount of food it needs in a day to fuel your training, is a good starting point. I don't track calories or anything like that, but occasionally I've kind of written down what I've had over a few days, and then you kind of tot it up and you realize, well, actually I'm like 500 calories short most days of what I need to do. And when you can kind of compound that, it's just helpful to give you a little bit of an idea, and then you realize how much you do need to eat.
I've done that before. It's sort of calculating it just for a few days, and then oh, okay, I thought I was eating completely differently to how I'm eating. And it sort of like shows you what you are actually eating, and then it can be a bit. But I have also gone down the route of like doing that and then not wanting to eat because I'll have to put it in the diary. So it's like, you've got to be a bit careful with those things, haven't you? And because I think when I started doing it, I think I got a little bit obsessive with it, and it started going in a direction that I was like, this is not good, this is not good. And I had to sort of stop myself and come back a little bit. Brilliant. Okay, so your nutrition now, it's on track. You fuel for sessions when you go out to do sessions. So how would you say it, you know, like give us a bit of contrast, like what it looked like then and what it looks like now. So how has it changed for you?
Well, as I mentioned, the fasted training, so I never do any fasted training now. I'll always have something. And then if it's for an evening session, say, I'll always make sure that I'll have like a bit of a snack, maybe a couple of hours before. I'm not good with eating anything very close to training, particularly if I'm running. And then if I'm doing anything more than 90 minutes probably, even if it's a fairly moderate effort, I would always take some fuel on during the session. Whether that's a gel or some chews or something like that. And and electrolytes as well. I feel like they're quite important for those sessions that are quite long, especially when they're setting on the turbo. And making sure that I refuel as well after. So post session, having something pretty much straight away, even if it's just for me, it's usually a shake just to get that just to get something in, and then that just gives me a bit more time to have a shower and then prepare some proper food, really. But I think that is really key to fueling the sessions and then having something pretty quick afterwards.
So what would be like a pre-workout snack for you? What kind of thing might you have?
Might be a bit of granola, a bit of yogurt, and fruit or something like that, or rice cakes with some. I quite like rice cakes with a bit of tahini and blueberries or something like that on. But yeah, something simple, or a smoothie or something. If you wanted something that's kind of quite light and easy to digest. The stomach.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you mentioned shakes. Do you ever have anything different?
I might have like a slice of toast with some nut butter or something on it like that, depending on kind of time of day. But yeah, usually I do quite like my kind of smoothies and things. So like on fruit, so I found it quite refreshing.
It's easy as well, isn't it? It's when I've finished a session before, I quite often would have protein shake, but also I'd be aware, like, I don't want to have this every time because you get too reliant on it and then you forget, like, but it's not easy to get the protein that you need in with real food either after a session, so they are really handy. But like you said, yogurt can be
and looking for the kind of the low fat Greek yogurts or the skyr yogurt, that they're really high in protein. So using those options, and that they are kind of low fat. You don't want too much sort of high fat snack after training, because your body will struggle to digest that a little bit. But it is difficult to get the protein in that you need, and I think for me, shakes are an easy way, a bit of protein powder is an easy way to do that. And then focusing on, for my meals, having, whole food sources of protein, whether that
you kind of like topping it up then when you have your main meal and things. And Precision Nutrition are really good at like giving nice simple diagram. They've got like the palm sized protein, haven't they, so that it shows you what you need to eat in a very visual way, so it's quite easy to understand. I think I definitely
Precision Nutrition, or if you follow them on Facebook or Instagram, they're really good at posting kind of like images and infographics, things about, like you say, the hand portions for the palm size for your protein, the cupped handfuls for your carbs and veggies and things. It's kind of a simple way to do it.
Definitely. I think it's a lot easier for people to understand than like calculating how many grams per...
You don't want to be looking at the back of a packet or weighing them out.
Just get my calculator out. Hang on a minute. No, I do that occasionally, because when I'm like trying to work something out. But I find that it's like, I can just think of a palm-sized piece of protein. But and also if you're vegetarian, then it can be a bit harder as well. Like my son is vegetarian now, so we mostly eat vegetarian because I'm too lazy to cook different stuff. But it's like, we eat so many beans. It's great.
Lots of beans. And I discovered I started using tempeh actually a while ago, which was
I really like that. I don't know if he would like it or not, though. That's
you can marinate it in a few things, can't you? Make it taste of something different.
I used to do one, and it had like marmalade. You did like a marmalade and soy sauce.
Oh wow.
It sounds really weird, but it's really good. And you do like a marinade like that and then have it with broccoli and stuff.
Nice.
It's quite, and noodles, but I haven't tried tempeh on him. He does tofu. He likes tofu.
Okay.
It's a bit tricky. But okay. So is there anything else that you kind of think people would benefit from hearing? Any kind of like ideas, or if anyone was in the same position as you, any advice as to what they should do?
Yeah, well, I think if you don't have your periods, that is a sign that something is not right. Obviously, pre in your when we won't talk about perimenopause and menopause, but that's not
Yeah.
like don't kind of accept that. That is a thing that your body is trying to tell you something. So, it's hard to know what to do. I think to do it on your own is quite difficult. So reach out to people, at least talk to your friends, family about it, and maybe look at going to get some blood tests and some advice from a nutritionist or a dietitian to kind of help you get through it. But it's quite often it's just small changes that you need to make, and it's not as daunting as once you start down that path. Actually, you kind of you're going in a good direction, and it's not as daunting as you think. Yeah.
I suppose people need to be like in the position where they've recognized that this is not good and they're not happy with it, because still there is still a mentality that it's okay and that this is a good thing in some circles. Like you must be training hard because you've lost your periods or whatever, which is not where we should be looking at now. So yeah, getting support if you are in that situation and you want to make that change, and you do need to make that change even if you might not want to.
It's that's what we're designed as women. That's what we're designed to do, and so many of our systems in our body are affected by that if we don't have our periods. And you can as you get issues with bone density, and even sort of like gut issues. I had really bad kind of like almost IBS symptoms a lot of the time. There's a lot of things I couldn't eat because I was under fueling, and the body's almost just shutting down. It's kind of down regulating everything. So there's a lot of things that it can affect by kind of under fueling, and it's something that you want to look at to get help with, and
for your future health, not just like now. It's like future, isn't it? It affects, if you let it go unchecked, then it's going to have a knock-on effect on you.
I think hopefully it's changing a bit more with people. I think it's becoming more talked about, and so Emma Pallant-Brown's been quite vocal on the periods and how they are a kind of a vital sign for women as our health. Really, they're not something to be kind of afraid of or ashamed of. They're something that we can use. They're good. They're an amazing sign for us that we have them and have a regular cycle. It's a sign of good health.
Yeah, and I like the way you said earlier, you were like, when you started finding out about it, you were like, wow, this is amazing. And kind of like you hadn't had a period for 7 years, and then you had one, you wanted to find out all about it, because the mood fluctuation changes, and when you start understanding that, it is like a real eye-opener. You're like, oh my God, that's why I'm like that then. And that's why I want to go and live in a cave at certain times.
Also, you notice of the good things that it brings you as well. Like you don't just focus on the couple of days a month where you feel really low and you don't want to talk to anyone. The fact the time,
because that's what's like portrayed as periods in most of it's like, oh, I've got PMT, it's that kind of stage of the cycle, rather than the bit like you're saying.
The first half of your cycle, when you feel like you really, you want to go and smash workouts, you're really kind of like, even in your work environment, in your day-to-day work, you're kind of a bit more, I'm more motivated to do things. I'm better at doing certain things. And you notice that, there's good sides of it, not just the bad side of your
definitely
cycles as well.
I even put makeup on sometimes when
you feel like you got this,
I want to
badass. Don't mess with me.
No, it's good. I like the whole sort of variation in it, and it's very interesting. I mean, we're not going to talk about that because that's like a whole other kind of thing, because we can go into how it changes later as well, which is where I'm going now. And it's like, oh my God, I've just got used to it. I've just started understanding everything, and now it's like someone's sort of thrown it all up in the air again. Okay, so I think I didn't have anything else I was going to ask you, but you said, go and get help if you feel like. Oh, the other thing I wanted to bring up was, I just know when you were talking about fueling for your sessions earlier, and you said that people talked about gels and how they want, they would use gels, and you were like, no, I don't want that because it's sugar and what have you. Was there a bit of you that was like, I don't want to eat sugar, and kind of like restrictive of those kind of foods at that time?
Yeah, I think so. They're kind of like we touched on earlier, that sort of like clean eating kind of thing. You don't, I was eating that. I'm quite particular about what I put in my body, and I felt that gels were an artificial thing that I should, I don't need to eat them. It should all come from whole foods,
Mm,
real foods, and the gels were kind of a bit of a cheat, really. I shouldn't really have those.
yeah. And there are alternatives to gels though as well, if people are kind of put off by taking gels, because I know a lot of people don't actually like using them. But there's a lot more options now. Like there's some more natural type gels, aren't there? And there's things
Yeah,
like
there's a lot more companies out there that are kind of doing those kind of like just very sort of minimal ingredients kind of thing. I know that's companies like Bello Forte, I know they use all kind of only natural kind of ingredients. I'm a big fan of Precision Fuel and Hydration.
yeah,
They've got very simple products and you can look at different options, whether it's gels or chews, or a carb mix drink as well. So there's kind of
yeah,
things that you can look at, and everyone's different, so it's just a case of finding what your stomach or what your body responds to, and what you like. So there's no kind of one size fits all. It's a bit of experiment.
no. And also, sugar at the end of the day is a carbohydrate, and we need
Yeah,
carbohydrate. So we've got to remember that it is just a very concentrated form of carbohydrates. There's nothing wrong with eating sugar, because it's got a very bad rep
yeah,
at the moment. There's people sort of talking about eliminating all sugar from your diet, but if you're training and for events, it's pretty unrealistic to try and do that. It's just like,
yeah. Your body needs those sugars, and like you say, those carbohydrates to fuel those sessions. And it's what powers you, what keeps you going. And you're using that in your sessions. It's not like you're just having, spoonfuls
just, yeah,
just sitting there.
drinking 5 cans of Coke and
Yeah.
not doing anything. Yeah, exactly. It's a
I think
completely different.
that goes back to what you said about you can't have good or bad foods. It's the kind of context and what you're using them for, or what you
Yeah,
need them. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. So how can people find out a little bit more about you? Have you got any websites, or I know you're on Instagram, but if you want to just let
Yeah,
people know.
yeah, I'm on Instagram. I think my handle is Life Well Fueled. So if you want to have a look and check me out. And I also work with my partner who does a bit of kind of triathlon coaching and strength training kind of approach, and that's DD Triathlon Coaching.
Awesome.
I'm on Instagram as well.
Okay, and I'll put them in the show notes as well, so people have got the link to that and they can
Brilliant.
find you easily. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add?
No, just yeah, thanks. It's been great chatting to you, and yeah, it's been really,
Yeah,
really
it's
cool to
great to
talk
have
about
you
it.
on. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, well, I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Celia.
No worries. Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye for now.